bitch.
Why did I just get thrown off?
Excuse me?
welcome to the Atlas Community Developer Stream. This is going to be something we do on a regular basis where we talk about upcoming plans for the development team. We talk about recent changes, things that are happening in the current state of the game. I'm joined here by... It's a bit... Did they switch over?
I hope they switched over
my dude.
because
All right, this is an early access stream,
you are
guys,
joined
know.
here by myself, Cade Hendricks. I am one of
It'd be
the
funny if
senior
we-
designers.
We are here now.
Oh, good. Okay, we're here. Yes,
Introduce
awesome.
yourself, my dude.
Yes.
You see it? They see? Okay,
I
great.
was introducing myself, and then you interrupted me so rudely. Yeah, I am a senior designer.
Okay.
I do a bunch of other stuff. I already said my name, but I'll say it again. Cade Hendricks. Hello, everyone. I'm a pirate today.
All right, cool. And then I am John Bolan. I'm a producer here. It's primarily help out with both Atlas and ARC from an external development kind of standpoint. I am also moving forward just going to try to primarily act as a host for our stream events. So regarding ARC or Atlas, I'll be here. Thank you for Cade and Jat for joining us for all this. So it'll be exciting to have more of a community effort.
Cool. I'm Jesse Rapsack, co-creative director, and I head up all of the art stuff on the project.
Awesome. Thank you guys for being here. So I'm Jat, lead CM, live producer. I flew in for this event to kind of like kick it off, and then going forward, as John said, he'll be taking over.
That's Captain Jat.
Captain Jat Sparrow.
You earned the hat.
I mean, I don't think I refer, like, you guys know I'm the captain. I don't need to point that out.
Okay.
So before we get started, I think we do need to talk about how everything started off with Atlas's launch. It was a bit of a stormy seas, we should say. It was a bit rough. The team was quite overwhelmed with the, I guess, how many people wanting to dive in day one, and it was a bit of a surprise to us. Suffice to say, our systems took a beating, but we're pretty dedicated, and we worked pretty quickly through that to make sure that you guys could get in, you guys could play the game. Initially, we started off with our priority being server stability, resolving crashes, improving performance, and that was always our kind of main objective whilst straight off the launch. And since then, we've pretty much eliminated maybe 99% of all server crashes. Our uptime is much higher. The thing we're working on most now is probably server performance, and we've seen massive gains this week, and there are obviously more gains to come. We're working on an update that hopefully releases within the next few days or within this week to get us up an additional 25% improvement, and going forward we'll be doing even more and more.
It's worth noting, I think, that we've brought on a couple of engineers specifically who have been focusing explicitly on just server, like that's what they have been doing, is resolving stability and performance issues. So
I love me some engineers that do that stuff. We should get more of those.
yes.
Jat Sparrow.
Well, no, it's such a weird thing. Like I know from working with like Sleeper in the past and working with others that like the world of just working on what is making things slow and how can we fix that is such a divergence from the rest of development on the game in every other way that no, it is really like a fun like exercise in just technical stuff. Like there's no frills, there's no art, there's no working in the, like it's just a mess of technical jargon, and yeah, no, it's a lot of fun to do.
The more we can do of that, the better, that's for sure. Something else we wanted to address is there have obviously been some recent discussions brought up by the community regarding our anti-cheat situation. So around Captain's Log 14, I think it was, we addressed that like it is a priority for us. We worked since then to implement BattleEye. That's now active on our game servers. I think we've already banned like 300 people, and we've wiped a couple of tribes off the game. Sorry, a couple companies off the game. I have about 12K hours in ARC. You know, it's hard to get away from that. So we wiped a couple companies off, and we banned a lot of people, and we're going to continue to iterate on those systems. Last night released major version 14, and that was primarily for the dev kit because we also released the dev kit, but there were some additional back-end changes in there which don't necessarily impact you guys too much, but they help us a lot when trying to catch these bad troublemakers. Additionally, what else we've been doing is that we've spooled up our custom support team. Well, I guess our GM team. They're tackling kind of like live issues that players face in game primarily they were dealing with company ownership problems because we had that horrible bug where people would lose ownership. But it looks like that is now resolved, which is, I'm so happy.
Well,
Like,
and I
that
know you've probably mentioned it live on Twitter or on any of the updates that we've done, but we are also relatively soon going to be digging into rewriting a whole bunch of
Oh,
like
yeah,
the
yeah.
company systems like from the ground up
Yeah.
because they literally just were not built around the idea of 1,000-person plus
Yeah. Now
companies, and so seeing that people are actually doing that, the system just needs a rewrite, and
Yeah.
when it gets rewritten, it'll be a lot more stable, and we'll be able to support much larger groups, and we'll be able to extend the functionality that can actually be done with companies. So
Yeah, it's we companies are a huge part of the game. It's very clear to us. A lot of you guys are in large companies yourself, or even small companies, and a lot of you guys have like alliances with up to like 10 plus groups in them, and we know it's important, and we do want to make those changes and get them in place. There's some things that we've done already to kind of help reduce the load related to that, and we've made some tweaks, and like there is more to come with that. It's kind of a waiting game. Like, we have a long development plan ahead of us, like, and even beyond early access, there's things we plan to do.
many
So,
years.
yeah, people constantly see improvements when it comes to those systems. I know people have been kind of talking about, like, hey, when are you guys going to add this to the company thing? Like, we need a better way to search for our users. Like, we need better ranking. Like, there's so much we want to do
Yeah.
because we know how important it is, and that is definitely on the horizon. But initially, it was very important for us to kind of tackle this data issue because it was a nightmare, and it seems like we're kind of over that now. But the GM team are there; they're working on other issues, and they're dealing with reports as well when we get reports of cheaters, alongside working with BattleEye. And we are going to be allocating more resources to that, whether that means like hiring additional GMs or whether that means the technical side. Typically, as we've kind of said in the captain's log, we do like to spend our resources on technical solutions and kind of put them to halt by the game itself, rather than trying to manage everything with manpower. But obviously, if we need to recruit more people, then we certainly will do it.
One thing probably for people to understand is, we're a decent-sized team, and we pretty much have 3 tracks going in parallel. One is technical stuff, which is bug fixes, performance, making sure that new features that had rolled out work properly, and responding to user reports and stuff like that. That would be kind of our technical track. We also have like a new features track where certain members of the team are working on those content updates and feature updates that are going to add new features to the game, do major balance changes, do things that the player community, you guys are asking for. Maybe there's some problems that there's not a good solution, so we work through those on the feature track, come up with that sort of plan to implement those. A little bit slower than the technical track, because the technical track tends to be, rapid fixes and then long-term performance stuff. Features are more kind of planned out, every few weeks, maybe month. You'll get new feature updates and things that come on. And also, the third track is like kind of longer stuff, things that are going to be happening over, several months to half a year in time. And I think that we've got team members devoted to each one of these things and various skill sets on the team that are better suited towards these different types of parallel tracks. And we'll talk a little bit more about them throughout the stream today. You'll get to see a little bit of what's happening in the various tracks, and also hear a little bit about where we plan to go with them. So I think that's pretty important to know, that development, especially early access in a sandbox kind of game like this, is a lot of iteration with you guys, figuring out what works, what's not working, and also planning to make sure that there's always new fun to be had, and that we've got a long plan and life for the game that is coming to fruition as well, in addition to all of these sort of balance changes, bug fixes, and all of that stuff. So
I think going on from that and kind of responding to community feedback, especially, like, it's something our team are pretty focused on. We have people always kind of reading social media, the forums, the Discord, like looking into your feedback, like even everyone internally, like no matter what department they're in, they're kind of sharing their thoughts on the game and like how we can improve this. Very early on, we released a large major version 10.0, and that was like our kind of response to initial community feedback we received, where players have said they enjoy the game, but the problem was it took too much time to get to the fun parts. So that patch was kind of dubbed our like fast to fun patch, and then we made changes to like we made changes to gathering, we made changes to like cooking and farming, we made these things more rewarding. We introduced the ramshackle sloop, we made some of the lower tier boats easier to obtain so players can experience the more pirate stuff a lot sooner. And then obviously like we're still reading the feedback you guys are sending in, and we do plan to address that. And even today we're going to be discussing some of the comments that you've shared across social media, and we obviously had 2 threads go up on Reddit and playatlas.com, which is collecting some of your questions, and we hope that like you will see us like we do read this stuff, we do plan to respond to it. Maybe some of it's not immediate and some of it's not instant. It's because like we know like, hey, we have a plan, that there is this development schedule, and it's just like we want to kind of sit on things. It's like, is this really an issue? And then we'll make changes from there.
Yeah, and I think it's worth touching on. I know that there are a lot of things that have a feeling of immediacy that come up in the game, and one of the things that we have to do is make sure that we're not having quite as many knee-jerk reactions to things, and like even if something seems on its front like there is a very straightforward or a very easy solution to it, especially if there's a lot of emotion wrapped up around either people losing things or getting things that they shouldn't have or whatever, we have to take the time to actually sit down and talk about and like figure out how we're going to address that safely for the better health of the game rather than knee-jerking to it. I just want to mention that that's a thing because I know that there are a lot of things that happen that people want immediate gratification for, and as much as we want people to have that like immediate sense of, okay, a thing happened and now it's fixed, we do have to spend some time like discussing what we're going to do about it before we do things, because if we respond immediately based on kind of the emotion of the event, we can end up sometimes making things worse and then having to spend more time fixing the things that we didn't think through.
Yeah. Well, sometimes the obvious fix or the first things that come to mind might cause problems with other features or technical problems that weren't foreseen by just going and doing what might seem like the first idea on how to fix something. So to what Cade's saying, you know, it does take a little bit of thought and consideration. You know, we hear ideas on how to balance things or how to fix things or new features, and it just has to, you know, be weighed against all the other stuff in the game and what our plan is with those things, and make sure that it's not going to cause some other huge problem. And sometimes it does. I mean, that's kind of why we're in early access, so that we can move a little more quickly than if we, you know, weren't in early access. And, you know, sometimes it sucks if you lose progress or something, you get hit with a bug. You know, none of us want to feel like we're losing playtime or have like been set back. But that's why we do say, you know, like, this game is in early access. There are going to be issues. We want you guys to know that, because it does take time, especially in a game like this, to work through a lot of the stuff and make sure it's right for the long run. And that's why we're at the beginning of this development cycle, not the end. We do plan to be in early access for a few years. And if you see the pace of change already on some things we're making, you can extrapolate that over, you know, the early access time frame and see that this game's going to be very different from month to month based on the iteration and the feedback and the changes that do go in.
I also want to touch on that real quick. I know we're kind of bouncing back and forth, and you probably have a lot of things to say, but a very important thing to take away, and you can share this with friends and other people who you're playing with, is that what you are participating in, and part of the reason that the game is so inexpensive at early access launch, and part of the reason that the iterative cycle with the community is so important to us, is that you are watching a game be developed in real time. These are problems that normally a company will spend years or months and months and months of time working out before anybody ever sees them. We are bearing our souls to you and going, look at the shitty stuff that, and pardon my language, but that happens.
Well, imagine if we worked for 2 years on this game in secret and put out the claim system like it is because we thought it was great.
Exactly.
And then it's like, whoops, the game's released now, we can't change the claim system anymore. You know, that's an example of something that it's like, here's how we think it should work.
Yes.
We don't really know until we get 40,000 people in there all trying to make land claims and play the game
This is
on
active
how
participation.
actually that is going to result in real world, day-to-day
Yes.
people playing the game for a little bit, never playing again, people wanting to play, take over their stuff. Like we've had
Exactly.
500,000 people come in and out of the game, you know, at least since launch, and it's like, what, like, how are you going to test that? You know, that's what early access is for, I think.
And
for
it's
us.
great for like stepping into early access. It provides an opportunity for us to actively watch with the community as it organically grows, and being a part of that organic growth, both as community and as a development team, is just really great to see. We'll touch base on it later, but you know, like, although none of you ever get a chance to see it, our Atlas general chat and like our feedback chat is just constantly flowing from the own team, talking about like, hey, we saw a streamer do this, we saw a streamer do this. It'd be really cool if we could do this, and it's just seeing that kind of dedication both in-house and from the community is just something that is refreshing and different. And like I myself, I've never worked with a studio that has done an early access, so being a part of the development cycle is always just something nice to see, especially moving forward and with a team like you know, Grape Shots.
I think just me speaking this personally, like early access titles are probably my favorite thing to work on because I love this kind of rapid iteration. Like I know some of you guys, like it may drive you mad seeing these 4 a.m. deployments to do something, but like it just gets me so excited, you know, like, hey, we're deploying another patch, like version 11.7, it fixes this stupid thing that we had in the game for a few days, and we're just like, you know, this is the kind of development I enjoy, like receiving the feedback, making changes based on that, as well as what we see too. Something I do want to comment is just like, it's not just streams we're looking at. We're also looking at the forums, or like a lot of us play the game too. Like we're on the official servers, we're on the unofficial servers. Like we're in the Discord, like we're taking part. Like we speak to players in these high level scenarios. Like I get messages from the leaders of basically every top 10 company according to dynamic maps, like every single day. Like I can open my phone right now, go into Discord, and there's probably about 60 DMs from someone talking to me about this and that, and then everything is filtered through our design team, our QA team, and we're making adjustments as we go along. Obviously, we have to like prioritize accordingly. I kind of see like, for me personally, there's kind of like 3 different phases. So we have like bug fixes and optimization, and that is always ongoing, and it's never going to stop. Like we're always going to try and optimize the game to be better from a server-side perspective and a client-side perspective. We're always going to be fixing bugs, and that's like constantly what's happening. And then balance changes is also something we have to like keep in mind, because this is a live game. It's like there are people who are currently playing this right now, and from a competitive point of view, so we have to consider the balance. And then finally, there's the whole like content stuff. So it's like, well, the game isn't finished. There's so much more we plan to add. Like it's going to have so much depth to it. Like there's so much more we want to do for PvP, for PvE, like just the narrative, like for creating this like this kind of world where, like, I suppose like this player-driven world. We want to do like markets, like. I try not to go into all that stuff now because there's a lot of
Time out, man.
Exactly, yeah, exactly. So I think that's kind of where we're at right now. And this stream and the ones we plan to do regularly going forward, they're going to be talking about like our upcoming dev plans, current community issues. So like I guess in the beginning bit, we kind of did a roundup of like the captain's logs we had recently. So you know, server stability was a big thing, anti-cheat and squashing hackers is a big thing. Like, and so now I think we can kind of address the things that have been brought up recently in the community. So when we announced that we were doing this stream on the captain's log on Monday, we opened up 2 threads, one on Reddit and one on playatlas.com to collect questions from the community. And we've selected a hand through to go through, but there are also some general topics that I'd like to touch base on before we dive into those, because these are things that have been mentioned by dozens of people in those threads, and as well as like just things you see every day and things we get messages about. So like, first of all is like, I think the main one we got to talk about is probably the balance of guns, melee weapons, and fire arrows. We made some initial tweaks to them around version 10, and we're still open to making changes to them. Like we're kind of like bouncing off each other, like what exactly do we want to do to it? It seems like the initial idea behind the gunplay is like we wanted to make guns more effective against higher armored users, because what we noticed initially, like prior to version 10, was that like you'd have your flintlock pistol, and then you'd shoot someone wearing heavy armor, and you would do like 0 damage essentially. So we kind of tweaked the values a bit to make it more piercing. And now the downside is we made it so that like it has less flat damage. So wild creatures are a lot more aggressive in that sense. Like you do less damage against lesser tiered armor. So we're obviously going to go back, and we are going to make changes to where we feel like we're in a good place. Maybe that means adding a multiplier to like wild creatures themselves, and then like we are open to doing this stuff. We just kind of see where we want to go from here. And then
Oh, sorry.
And then the other stuff we kind of mentioned was like fire arrows and melee weapons. Maybe they need to be more buffed, or we need to encourage more people to do them. I did see an interesting thing in one of the Reddit threads, and something that someone messaged me on Discord is like, you know how we have the mini game thing, where like
The reload.
yeah, like the
Yeah,
reload
the
mini
reload,
game. Someone's
yeah.
just like, we should do that. Fire arrows.
Oh.
Shoot a fire arrow, and if you
You
want
gotta
it to
light it
burn, you
too,
gotta hit.
you
Then I
gotta
was just like,
dip
damn,
it.
that sounds really good. But,
Yeah.
it's
and-
not something I've spoken to these guys about yet, because I read it earlier today. So like,
No,
I don't know,
and-
I kind of like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, we'll see. We'll discuss it.
Does that mean
and,
if you don't get the minigame right, your arrow doesn't set on fire?
Yeah.
exactly,
It's just a
yeah,
and then you're like,
yeah, yeah.
But-
You set on fire instead?
Yeah, but that ties into.
I don't know if we have to
Oh,
go
not
that
the arrow,
far.
no.
Like,
Yeah.
can you imagine? No, I
It-
don't think we
it-
need to go that far.
It
but
totally. This all ties to Kate's point that he brought up earlier, as Jat was talking about bounces, is that we can't have a knee-jerk reaction in seeing that. Like, all of it has to be incremental changes and bits of it, because when you introduce too much, then you might be going too far into a direction.
Exactly.
And it's like there's only so much that Grapeshot can do as a team to QA and understand the process of like what the fallout is of all that.
Well, and
So-
sometimes the fixes for things are kind of orthogonal from what they feel like they should
Good
be.
word.
I like to use the example of I believe it was the Hellion in StarCraft II, that during early testing, and I could be wrong on this being the Hellion from StarCraft II, but I know this story's a real one. They had run into it was a thing in an RTS that shot fire. The point being is that
was
people
a
really
Hellion.
hated this unit. They hated it a lot, and nobody wanted to use it. And they kept getting this feedback that this unit's garbage, it's awful, we don't want to use it. And one of the designers sat down and talked with the people who were running into this problem, and the change that they went back and made was that they made the fire blue and more fiery, and suddenly everyone really loved this unit. Problems occasionally have orthogonal solutions to, like, nerf fire arrows. Yeah, I know, nerf fire arrows. We could just reduce damage on it. But maybe just reducing damage on the way that it deals damage is not the best solution for the game, and it's a thing we have to sit down and play with and like watch how people are using it and talk to the people who are using it the most and go, okay, what are the actual like gameplay ramifications for reducing damage, or adding a mini game in that makes it so that you have to actually be successful at something in order to use the bonus that this thing offers, or maybe moving fire arrows down the skill tree is the real answer and making them less accessible to people who haven't spec'd into that part of the tree. Like, there's a lot of options that are available in a widely systemed game, and we have to talk about a lot of those things.
So I know it may seem like we're not going to tell you what we're changing right now, and that's just the idea. Like, these are things we're discussing. We're open to make these changes, and like this was more of me just kind of like acknowledging to you guys, like, hey, we hear your feedback about guns, about melee weapons, about fire arrows, and like we're open to making changes, and we're just kind of figuring that out. The next thing I kind of wanted to jump on was creature spawns and the alpha creatures. People are like finding that we have a huge amount of them on the islands, and we're actually looking into some technical solutions to like kind of adjust how they're weighted and how they spawn around the map. So this is kind of like an overall change to the entire game, which we should see improvements from that initially. But there's also the idea that like maybe we just gotta bring it down a bit. Like we didn't want this to be like a kind of a heavy creature game, but then there's also like we do need the environment to be tough, and we do need people to like feel threat. And, like when they're going around and they're trying to like harvest something and build their boats and everything, like it shouldn't just be a walk in the park. And it's kind of like fine tuning that. And I think maybe once we get the balance weighting done and the numbers kind of are more evened out, we can kind of see like, okay, what is the primary issue? Is just like people aren't able to deal enough damage to these creatures, or is it that like they're dealing too much damage, or maybe like maybe even once we have the weighting in place, it's still like too many we're seeing. I know.
Maybe they have to be more rewarding to fight.
I know, like I've received a lot of feedback, especially from players who have put in a lot of hours in Ark as well. Like they're saying, like they kind of hide these creatures, and so I know one group of players who have told me like they've literally built up a structure to take the wild creatures through, and they just leave them in stasis. And like that kind of tells me like, okay, guys, we gotta adjust.
There's something
that.
not fun about interacting with that system, and we want to
Exactly.
find out how we can make it enjoyable for players rather than something they want to put to the side and not look at.
So then the other thing I wanted to touch on is performance. this is something we're always going to be harping on about. Like, I think in Captain's Log 17, and then we just posted, I'm losing count. That Dolly just posted, we had a section called Performance, and that was talking about like the server-side optimization we were doing, and it's not just server-side changes we're going to make, we're going to do client-side too, so you guys can get a higher FPS, and the game will go smoother too, and it's something we're always going to be working on. Like, there will never be a time like where we don't want to improve performance. Even if we have the best performance in the game, we still want to get it better because then we can even do more things. And like we as a team love doing more things. Like we love adding in more content. We love adding more gameplay, more systems. Like we love kind of creating this world which has like layers and layers of gameplay and mechanics that people can enjoy. And to do that, we kind of need to always have performance be a priority. And it's something that's whenever we're going to stop working on it. And as Kate said, like we're hiring dedicated folks who like. Their job is literally like, all right, you're on performance this week. Next week, you're you're on performance for the rest of your life.
Yes.
kind of thing. And
Yeah,
like,
I mean, right now we're working on ship performance because ships are like other structures where, it's free build and each piece is customizable by the player. So, it's kind of like it's a little bit of a hard problem to solve, but we feel that it's an important one to solve. Out at sea, it's not such a big deal, but as you guys probably know, you like to have a lot of ships and harbors and stuff like that. And I'm sure we've all been near an enemy base or in our own base where we've got a huge harbor of like 20 ships, and it's like 10 or 15 FPS, compared to looking the other direction. And the ships do tend to get really expensive. The more structures you put on them, the more NPCs, cannons, all that stuff. And it's really just a lot of things to render. And so we'll definitely have some good client performance there, some improvements with ships, which should help on land performance as well around those harbors. And then we've just got a bunch of performance improvements in the pipeline, especially around things like water, making that better when you're not on the ocean. We've got some stuff related to just rendering the environment more efficiently. There's just a lot of things happening right now that are going to be coming over the next couple weeks or so. So I'm pretty excited about that myself. I don't like to see people turning their settings down to like low quality with no shadows and no fog so that they can get an advantage with frame rate. At the same time, I think especially in early access, it's important to let everybody do that so that they can play the game at a level where they're comfortable with the performance on their system and the frame rate. And I don't think we'll take that away ever, but we do want to make sure that low settings looks better and runs better as well as high settings. So, there's all that happening, and again, like I mentioned, the tracks at the beginning, that's happening in parallel to all the balancing and the feature stuff that's happening as well.
another topic I want to touch on, which is maybe less of a concern now, but we did still see a lot of comments about it, was Ship of the Dam. So, I mean, since launch, we've significantly reduced the amount of Ship of the Dam that you see on the grid. I think we started out with 150, and now we're looking around 30 to 40, so it's come down quite a lot. We've reduced their damage. Their aggro range now varies based on the type of boat you're on. So if you're on a raft, it's quite a small amount compared to if you're using a galleon. And we're seeing how things go. We're actually introducing some kind of variety to the Ship of the Dam themselves. So
good news, there'll be more ships of the dam.
Well, I mean, it is kind of good news because there'll be less mean ones.
Yeah, we're putting in smaller Ship of the Dam.
We're gonna have some Care Bear Ship of the Dams, and then like some.
And then we're gonna have some real scary big ones that are much more rare.
Yeah, so
that way we'll have still probably the same overall number, but a lot of them will be easier than the current ones, because the current one's kind of like mid-tier, and something that's more kind of like brigantine size. And we're gonna have one we'll show you on the stream today anyway. It's about half that size, and then one that's twice that size. So
yeah, and they will, this size is probably gonna be pretty indicative of like how tough they are to face. So if you see a big one and you're on a sloop, you probably should sail away. Unless you're good, like if you feel like you're a good player, because I've seen some people do some damage in sloops. Like there are some impressive players out there.
Yeah.
So it's kind of going from there, and then if we need to make adjustments, we will. Like if we need to. But I think
we might even do stuff like give them some like pick on someone your own size type logic too, so you don't get the huge like giant ship going after little sloops like or something.
Or we could do Alpha Ship of the Dam.
Yes,
like
that'll make everyone really happy. Should we tell them that they're going to start walking on land soon? No, I'm just kidding.
The ships just have creepy legs that come out and walk up on. It's perfect.
I don't know if you guys did it. Like, I think it was like 2 weeks ago we had this bug, the rapid fire Ship of the Dam. Oh my god.
Oh, yeah.
I think in the last 3.5 years, that was probably one of the worst bugs I'd ever seen. We did fix it in like 10 minutes, but like the damage was kind of like, it bummed me. You know, maybe we bring it back for a joke one day. If we introduce a special holiday
Like an
event,
event,
we bring
yeah,
like the
just-
rapid fire ship of the dam, like one special creature that exists on the entire grid. You kill it, you get some godlike puckle or something like that. You know, I remember I was getting messages saying the ship of the dam was shooting like puckle. I'm like, what? What do you mean? And then I look, I was like, oh my god, this is that. So yeah, like
No, just put it in there, make it so you can grapple onto it and take control of it for a limited time, and then
Oh.
everybody will like it, right?
taming ship
Then
of
it
the
becomes
dam.
a feature and no longer a
It's
bug.
like
Yeah,
the
no, it's not.
necromancy of the sea. Well, I suppose they're already undead though.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Necromancy, a dead thing. Yeah.
Let's see, you know.
Yeah, I don't know.
And-
I was looking at you for rules
Yeah.
on like necromancy.
What
like,
are our necromancy rules?
Hey man.
And I guess the other kind of general topic I want to touch on is the claim system. We've made some changes to them in, I think it was major version 10.0 was when we made a lot of adjustments to the claim system. So we changed how easy or difficult it is to steal someone's kind of claim away. We changed the amount of time required to contest and how much time is required to like steal boats and stuff like that. And these are things we're still iterating on. The claim system is a huge part of the game, and we're kind of like seeing where we want to go with it. I know a lot of people, like especially in this room right now, there's like probably 6 people in this room who all have their own ideas of how they want to do the claim system. Mine's the best, but it's
You're
like
right,
it's
mine
something
is
like
the
we know you guys are sending us feedback in about, and we're gonna we do plan to kind of make changes, and maybe that requires like redesign the system, but we kind of want to see how it goes. And it's not something that can be done in a day. Like the claim system is super important, and we have to like decide like, are we really kind of ready to make this change? And the thing is, like, it's such a huge design change. It's like not something that can be, like I say, can't be done in a day, can't even be done in a week. And we kind of want to see like where exactly we want to take it. I know I personally would like some kind of upkeep cost of claims, and then Jesse had this really cool idea where it's just like if you're claim that like focused on your company or your company and alliance, like you're kind of more prone to being abused by the wild creatures. And I thought that was pretty nice. It encourages people to use the neutral zones, because I would like to see more people use the neutral zones, like the neutral claim setting. That's the default setting you have when you drop down a claim flag. It makes the area neutral, so anyone can come build on it, and just expanding that system, seeing how it goes.
Yeah, I mean,
So-
I think something to think about, like, there's a lot of ideas about limiting the claim system in some way, but if you hard limit it, people are just going to work around it.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't just say, here's the rule, and you're not allowed to break it, because everyone's going to break it. So
Yeah.
we want to incentivize people to use the claim system in a way that's more balanced for everyone. And so that's the type of stuff that we want to think about. You know, like, why as a large tribe would you want to use the neutral setting? Why might you want to let people live in your territory? And what advantages can the game give you for allowing that versus just saying, I'm sorry, no, you can only have 50 claim flags, because then I'm just going to split my company. I'm going to make another one, and I'm going to make an alliance, and then I'm going to make 300 claim flags between like 5 alliances that and it just spirals out into like you always trying to limit, and get around the people who are breaking the rules, instead of like using the
Incentivize
carrot
gameplay
and being
versus-
like,
Yeah.
here's we want you to be, you know, playing this way if you want to, and here's the benefits of it. You're always going to have the people who want to play, who, you know, in a way that's more like, I want to be a pirate, I want to grief people, I want to like go in there and destroy. Their benefit is they get satisfaction out of doing that. They get loot. They get that's already in the game. So I think the harder challenge is how do we incentivize people to
Play peacefully.
play peacefully and do stuff that appeals to the other part of the player base that don't always want to be, you know, logging in and rebuilding because they got griefed, you know, by a passing by tribe in the night or something. So I think that's a real challenge for us for this game, and I you know, there's a lot of cool ideas on the table right now on how to update the claim system as part of that overall a goal, but we're working on it, and you know, that's going to be one of the things that we're excited to roll out in a later patch as part of like a bigger update, and maybe some other things will happen around that at that time too. So.
We're definitely reading all your feedback about it, like all the ideas that people have. Like, it's, as Jesse said, it's a very important system for us. Like, imagine if we did,
I mean,
like,
alternative
2
is
years.
pillar spam, right? You see that on lawless servers or whatever. So I mean, it's important for this game to create a good land claim system that works from everything up to small teams of players, even solo players in some way, through the larger teams. You know, And also, I think that it's not necessarily required to claim land either, you know? Like, whether people feel like that now or not, we didn't want to design a game where you had to have land in order to progress.
Yeah.
You know, that's why we created the free ports. That's why we created lawless zones where you can sort of be on land briefly. And as larger tribes sort of open up through our changes to the claim system, you know, places where other players can come and either use their land neutrally or settle on it, whatever. You shouldn't have to like maintain a claim to make progress in this game. There's a lot of ways you can play, and I think that's important to think about too. There's going to be people who can only play a few hours a week or whatever, you know, and we want to make sure that those people can have fun as well. And maybe the way you have fun a few hours a week isn't trying to maintain a claim that you know somebody's going to try to come and steal, because having a claim all to yourself is sort of signing up for a certain type of gameplay perhaps. We don't want to be in a situation where you have a claim and it's permanent and now nobody can ever be on that land now. You know, that opens up all types of problems for long-term gameplay. So there's a lot of balls to juggle with the claim system if we want to really support all types of players in the game.
Cool. So those are kind of like the general things I wanted to address. I think now we can go through and read some of the questions that we had sent in. Some of these things we kind of already spoken about in that general area here. So let me see if I can get one. So obviously, I mean, we have already spoken about this, but like Renard and Smile77, they wanted to know that, like, are we happy with the current amount of predators that people see, and like, are there plans to add additional methods of dealing with them? Like, people want to know if we've spoken about like passive tools to ward them off, similar to like spike walls, or maybe we have like some kind of like automation stuff, like, you know, in ARC we have like plant turrets and stuff like that. We're certainly looking into like, I'm not going to say yes or no to any of this stuff. It's a little like hypothetical. Like we're brainstorming like how we want to tackle this stuff, and like maybe it just comes down to like creatures need to be toned down a bit, or maybe we do have like some passive tools to ward them off, or like obviously we have some systems that aren't fully in the game yet. You know, there's like tarot stuff. Maybe we could do something with that to kind of disincentivize these creatures from pillaging your lands, kind of thing. So
I do want to say, just so that people are aware, one of the things that we do, at least from a technical standpoint, want to avoid doing is having another, hey, so my base is like 94 million turrets. That is not only kind of like boring gameplay, but also it is a huge performance tax on servers. And so what at least I, as a designer, will be advocating for are probably a lot more solutions that are focused around either active things that are things that players can do on, you know, loops, like going out and enchanting a lamppost once every day, you know, spending a spell or spending a whatever in order to have a thing that wards off enemies. Spike walls are actually a good, if simplistic, solution to that kind of stuff. But I wouldn't count on a whole lot more automated turret stuff if we could avoid it at all.
Yeah. That kind of leads me on to the next question. That I was sorry, by the way, if I pronounced your name wrong. In general, everyone from now on. So Yakaru was kind of wondering like what the whole situation is with offline raiding. People are finding that like they're not really able to defend their bases or their boats, and like that is, and because you know you have to log off, you can't be expected to stay on all the time, and that is something we're aware of, and like we are discussing solutions. As Kate kind of hinted, like there is this whole tower system we have going, and I know the designers and the gameplay guys, they kind of want to head towards maybe taking advantage of that to help deal with these situations.
I do also want to say that one of the things that there wasn't really time for, because it's a very involved thing to do, but that I know that I want to do, and I will be talking with some of the other designers about once we decide to like head down, actually tackle, hey, okay, raiding, how do we want this to like sit defense or offense wise, and how do we want those dynamic, like we're going to actually do an in-depth dive on this, is setting up a literal cost versus benefit analysis of, okay, here are the weapons that can actually hurt the structures that you use to defend your whatever. Here are the defensive structures. How do these two things interrelate on a resource level? Like strictly, what are the resource values of the two things involved? And then take a look at how we skew those two things I think, at least me personally, I am the kind of person who favors defenders. I think that's an overall philosophy that we've been trying to go with in the game, is that it should be much easier to defend your base, not only because we don't have right now a huge amount of tools for like automated defense, but also because we don't want people to feel like they have to be 24/7 watching all of their stuff all the time. Obviously, with big companies, that's easier. You've got a lot of people who can go back and forth. But the individual who sets down and wants to make a small place for themselves, they probably shouldn't have to worry so much about somebody with a pickaxe coming along, tearing a hole in their building, and just making off of all of their stuff.
Yeah. So like, all of these things are things we're seeing that you guys kind of want to give us feedback on, and you want to see us make changes, and like we are aware of it, and we are happy to make changes and adjustments as we need, whether that's balancing changes or whether that's introducing new content, new gameplay mechanics to help deal with this stuff. It's like this is just the process of early access. So we set out to like launch Atlas version 1.0. It needs to have these features ready
Yep.
for people to be able to experience this stuff. And now that the title is launched, and we're like, okay, now let's see what players think are the problems. Like, what are the things that we need to address? So what's something we've overlooked and like didn't really think would be a thing, and actually turns out to be. And this is where we kind of like, okay, we got to tackle this, we got to tackle this, and thankfully, like we do have a pretty long dev cycle ahead of us, and even I mean, it goes beyond early access. Really, like we're open to making these
There
changes.
aren't nearly all of the things in the game that are going to be in the game.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of room there. Like, from a development side, we have actually allocated a good portion of time. I know you and Jeremy talked about this, I think on the stream at the Video Game Awards, but one of the things that we definitely have set aside is a bunch of time specifically for things that come out of community or gameplay. Like, these are things that people find important or interesting or fun about our game and aren't specifically related to our vision of the game, but we have a bunch of time set aside for those kinds of things in development, not just in terms of systems, but content and stuff like that.
Yep.
So that is a big focus that we have, is not just what is our vision, but how is the community driving, how are the players driving the development of the game, and how can we take time to merge that into the game that we want to see in the end.
Sure.
And it's kind of an ongoing process. Like, about I think like 2 minutes before this stream launched, like I got a message on Slack. It's on a tweet where she was like, "Hey, this is a good idea. We should do this. Make sure this gets done for the next patch." And the instructions were shown. I was like, "Oh, okay, cool. Let me look into that after the stream." So it's like this is constantly going on, and we're seeing things sent everywhere. That was a Game of Perfection tweet, by the way. So if you look at your recent tweets, GP, you may see something we thought was a good idea, and we're gonna do it. Putting us on the spot there, so make sure you guys deliver. Otherwise, make me look like a bad person. All right, and we don't want that.
You're never a bad person, Jet.
Thanks, Dan. I appreciate that.
Captain Jet Sparrow's a terrible person.
Don't judge a book by its cover.
Yeah, I look like a nice person.
What
do you mean?
Take a shot to
Do you
that.
see what I have to work with? Like
Shots.
abuse from Twitter, abuse from the team.
How many
like,
people have you killed today?
We don't need to discuss
That's
that.
right.
Take a shot to that.
They deserve to die. I mean, anyway. So this is something we've had in the game. Like people are aware of this. It doesn't actually do anything yet, but I think it may be kind of nice to maybe touch on this a tiny bit. Like, so Adrian wants to know, like, what does the tarot skill line going to entail? Obviously, it's magic. What sort of magic are we looking at? Some sort of divination magic? Divination for finding treasures, shipwrecks. See, we'll have something hopefully useful with balanced combat implications. I know a lot of people kind of have various different ideas to how we want to do this. There is just a lot of talk about using, like, how you want to maybe use magic to protect bases and stuff like that. And there's some gameplay guys who are like, they want fireballs and.
Well,
like,
so the idea, and I'm going to like preface this with that the tarot system is a little bit my baby, but obviously with any gameplay system that gets worked on at all, it will go through massive iteration by the time we implement it into the game. So what I'm about to tell you is what I would like to see, but it will probably end up being very different from this in the end. Essentially, a set of objects, cards, items, whatever, however they decide to manifest themselves, that have either one-time or limited use spell effects that have been like branded into the cards. When you invoke them, they do all sorts of things, fireballs, enchantments. Like, you can use them on an object as an evocation. You can use them, I want to be able to use them in crafting as evocations, something that you actually enchant into items. So you'd be able to, for instance, take a card that has the fireball spell on it and use it in crafting in order to make a blunderbuss that shoots fire pellets, that kind of stuff. And then hopefully there will also be the ability to do, I guess, enchantment type stuff, not on weapons, but on yourself, where you can give yourself buffs, or you can give party members buffs, or company members buffs, things like that. I don't think anybody on the team wants to go to, like, hey, you can summon down a swarm of meteors from the sky and destroy a fleet of ships from, like, I don't think we want any ridiculously crazy things to be happening with this, but a lot of, like, small scale, we need an abstract way of doing something in the game, be it we want to have fireballs or whatever, or we want a system that works, like being able to ward off enemies, or being able to make weapons or items more powerful without explicitly just cranking their stats up even more, or maybe we want to make it easier to find things in the world, such as shipwrecks, and we don't have a like physical or mechanical way of doing that with the game world.
Then we can
Magic
potentially
can
rely on
stand
magic,
in,
yeah.
and we can go, hey,
Exactly.
that's actually magic, and so it opens up the possibilities for gameplay a lot through that system. But that's kind of how I want it to manifest itself,
like
is in, and then later I want to make a card game, but nobody will let me, so we'll see how that goes.
Yeah, I think something to say about this stuff is, like, this is all kind of things we're discussing, things we
Yeah.
want to do. We don't know whether the final product will end up being like this. We don't know, like, the first time you see Tower, we don't know, like, what Kate has just said, it may not actually be that case. You may have a better idea tomorrow, and we end up going with that instead. So,
Yeah.
like, I do want to preface that with this as well. So you guys are kind of aware, like, that is.
That was essentially my elevator pitch
Yeah.
from like 6 months ago when I said, hey, I'd really like to do this for our magic system. And yeah, absolutely. That sounds like a cool, like, maybe that's the kind of thing we'll do for magic. And then we slapped tarot in there and went, this is absolutely something that obviously we need to get to post early
Yeah.
access launch. But
I mean,
we haven't sat down and done, like, again, an in-depth design dive into it. I have my own documents that are like, here's all the things I'd like, but I'll show them to people, and people will go, hey, here's all the reasons that that's awful and we can't do that. Let's try some other stuff. And that's the iterative process. Like, that's the magic of
Yeah.
doing any development on anything in a game, is no idea comes out fully formed. It's a process.
But it is a big perk of us also being in early access.
Yes.
That, like, that is a communal discussion.
Yes,
that we
and
could
now
also
that
have.
everybody knows about, if you want to put up a thread, I have a frog in my throat. If you want to put up a, let's try again. If you want to put up a thread on Reddit or on the forums or whatever, that's just, hey, here's a bunch of cool ideas for Magic and Tarot. Go do that, and I'll read it.
Yeah.
And we'll all read it, and we'll take stuff away from that. And if you think you got a cool idea, go for it. I will probably, when we start working on that system, do that, just because I don't have all the good ideas in the world, and even everybody at the studio together doesn't have all the good ideas
Speak
in the
for
world.
yourself.
You're right. I'm sorry. Jack does have all of the good ideas in the world, and if you
I
have,
just can't do them.
if you need any ideas, Jad has them. Ask him on Twitter.
I just-
hashtag good ideas. Hashtag
I just
Jad.
don't know how to make them
Just-
myself. But I think this is kind of the
Hashtag Jet Sparrow.
what is it?
Hashtag pirates.
This is the
hashtag
double-edged blade, right? Of
A
early
triple-edged
access.
blade.
So, like, the really good thing is, like, we can iterate with our community on this stuff. We can, like, take their feedback and, like, see what they think we should implement and, like, kind of like the changes we should make. But at the same time, we've kind of, like, made ourselves vulnerable because, like, we're, like, kind of putting our ideas out there, and maybe they're, like, I don't know, maybe they're awful and people kind of don't want to see them initially. But that's the whole process. Like, we are willing to make changes. We are willing to adjust as necessary, and we do want to make sure that we're dealing with the problems that you guys identify, whereas keeping with our vision of the game and some of the systems that we want to see in it.
Yeah.
Let's see. Oh, this is a question for you, Kate, specifically.
Oh, no.
Is it the Angvaldir question?
I'm not ready for.
Oh wait,
Okay.
oh no, this is. Oh yeah, I skipped that one by accident. So, oh god, how do I say his name? Arthur
Hey.
Duron. Arthur Duron. I feel like the game needs more ways to farm NPC crew, gold, and resources outside of maps and Ship of the Damned. Are there any plans which involve creating enemy NPC crewmen and factions that control towns and ships to which players can raid for gold, capture NPC crew materials. I think it'll be awesome to pillage and raid in these 2 towns. So like, I can say like this isn't something I've really discussed with the team. Like I don't know whether we wanted to have like this whole like NPC kind of running these towns and then you go in and you steal from them. I like the idea of players run towns and you go in and steal from players.
Here's the difficulty that you run into, and this is a wholesale truth for anybody that is making any game anywhere. The moment that you present players with a thing that looks human, they are going to expect the thing that looks human to act human unless you give them a really, really good reason not to. NPC towns, I'm not going to say no, because there may be ways that we can do that, and it's literally something that we haven't even discussed doing that. What I do know is that when we present the idea of a town with people in it, the AI considerations that go into that to make sure that the things you're interacting with even feel like a semblance of, hey, these are actual like NPC players we're going up against, is a field that I don't even think we have the specialists that we would need to work on. Like, we don't have anybody specifically who works on, hey, this is the AI of a thing. Like, we've got a lot of good programmers, and they could probably figure it out, but making something that feels like it's human-ish is very difficult to do. It is very performance-heavy. Like, there's a lot of active on-tick calculations that have to take place for those things to respond amiably to whatever the player throws at it. Like, when you do this, what would most likely end up happening, unless we spent a lot of time and a lot of resources on it, is there would end up being one goofy cheese way to break into all of these or to cheap out the AI or whatever, and people would just do that, and it wouldn't so much be an NPC village that you're raiding as a store of resources that you take these specific steps to get into, and that's a lot less fun. So, to answer the actual question, more ways to go around and get NPC crew and to get gold and to get things like that. We absolutely have a number of different things that we want to do to make those more accessible. We have quests that we have been talking about, all sorts of different things that are available to us, and a lot of the systems already exist in-game for getting players to go off and do specific things and then get rewarded for it. There are, or at least has been talk, again, I'm not promising that this is a system, but it's something that I know a lot of people want to do, is having the availability for players to quickly and easily join tribes that are going to go on raids to do things that can then reward those players with some amount of gold or some amount of the loot that is gotten from these raids without them having to join the company and become a big part of that and be trusted enough to go on a raid, et cetera, et cetera. Ways to quickly get in and out and be like mercenaries, that kind of a thing. So there are a number of different things that we're looking into in regards to making that stuff more accessible. It's just going to be, it's going to be a matter of time. We've got some, like, we've got, I'm not actually sure if we're allowed to talk about this, but spoilers, the deep sea trenches that we are currently working on implementing, which are going to be deep down under the water zones that you can go down and explore. I think that at one point or another, actually, I know I'm not allowed to talk about that, so I'm not going to talk about it. But yeah, we got a lot of stuff in the
Point being
pipeline.
is that, like, in this stream too, and we'll get to it soon, we just want to answer just a couple more Q&A questions that we vetted through, but soon we'll start talking about what we have as an update, and then Jad and Cade can start really breaking down on like the specifics about what we plan to put in heading into the later months of 2019.
I think we're going to do a few more questions. We're going to make these more quick fire rapid because me and Cade do have a tendency to be quite verbose, and we can probably talk for hours about a lot of this stuff. I mean, we do, but we can probably do it on stream too. So like Smile77 wants to know, can we expect new types of ships? Like straight up, yes, of course.
Yes.
There are going to be plenty of types of ships. We want to do like more versatile things. I know there are a lot of players who like are making requests, like we want to see this, we want to see that, and we do hear them. And if there's any that we specifically think, you know what, that's a good idea, we should definitely get that in, then we are certainly open to doing it.
Well, one thing that's coming soon is new types of hull pieces.
Yes.
So we'll have reinforced hulls instead of just the base wood planks. We have a reinforced tier that you guys will see more about soon. And even though that's not a full new type of ship, you'll be able to sort of custom build a ship that has very different defense and movement mechanics and stuff like that because of that. Who knows? Maybe it's a little more fire retardant, maybe.
Weird.
I think in terms of like some of the general other questions we get like that, I think we should address real quick is when will this be available on Xbox Game Preview? Like we will let you know. Like
We're working on it.
Yeah, exactly. When we can tell you, trust me, like you're gonna hear about it. Like if we haven't said anything, it's just because there's nothing to really tell you other than we're working on it. And that kind of applies to everything. Like when is this gonna happen? You said you're gonna do this thing. Well, if we haven't given you an update, it's because we're still doing the thing and it's not ready to
Trust
tell
me,
you
we
about
can't
it.
shut up when there's a new
exactly,
thing ready
yeah.
to be
Like,
looked at.
like we'll make a trailer and put it all over social media and tell you like, hey, come check out this thing, you know. So
Jab
like,
buffs his Twitter followers.
you'll certainly know about it.
Follow Jat on Twitter.
Nah, follow
Hashtag
Sell
Jat.
the Atlas for all the latest news. Wait, yes.
Yeah,
I was
at
about
Sell
to
the
say, I was about
Atlas.
to say survive, and I was like, wait, no.
Survive the Atlas.
Yeah. And then a lot of people are like, are you planning on adding more decoration, more armor, more items, blah,
Yes.
blah, blah? Yes. Like,
Yes.
are you planning on adding more content? Yes to all the things. Like, we could be here for days literally talking about that stuff. Some of the other things, I'll put this up on like a post somewhere so people can know. Someone says, can you put levers on boats to allow us to turn torches on and off? Like, we have a hotkey in game. If you press the O key when you're in the captain's seat, and maybe the lieutenant's podium too, you can light all the torches on your boat or turn them off. And you can also use R to toggle gun ports, use the U key to cycle ammo on normal cannons on active groups, the J key to cycle ammo on swivel cannons on active groups, and the H key to view all current ammo. I will put that up somewhere so you guys have access to that because I don't think it's displayed in our UI. We should probably get it added into our tip thing. Another quick question: does sneaking actually make you harder to detect by predators? Yes, it does. It reduces the range at which they can, I guess, see you. Or
I believe you have to be crouched or prone in order for that to take effect. Maybe not. I know that.
I know we were discussing that prior to launch. I just can't remember off the top of my head if we changed that back to like. It's one or the other.
But yes, it does absolutely work. You can become very nearly invisible to things with a maxed out sneaking skill.
I think that
if all else fails, crouch and it'll work.
Yeah, I think that covers most of it. Like there are obviously more things that we wish we could talk about, but we're kind of running on a timeline here, and we will. And I mean, I'm gonna be doing a captain's log on Monday most likely, which covers everything we've discussed so far, as well as some things we didn't get to. I think right now we do want to jump into things that are coming in a big patch we have planned in February. This will be like Atlas version, most likely 15. If we're at 14 right now, so I guess it'll be 15. And this is the big bounty update. So we have quite a lot of features coming in that patch. And one of the things we would like to discuss in there is a bounty system for PvP. And the idea is like if you don't like a particular player or company, then you can send a bounty on their head, and other players can go capture them, kill them, and you can claim the gold for doing so. Like, this is something we're pretty excited about. I don't know if you want to kind of shed some light into the bounty system.
Well, yeah. On its surface, obviously, it's a means of exacting vengeance. Specifically, you will be required to take and, I believe, return the skull of the individual after either noosing them, or we actually have the guillotine coming out with this patch so that you can off with their heads properly and take their offed head to wherever it is that you need to turn in the bounties. This is going to probably end up tying into systems that will show up later, where we kind of want to be able to track the reputation of individuals over time. I'm not going to talk too much about that because, again, it's all stuff that we're going to work on in the future. Like, nothing's concrete, and I don't want to give anybody any false ideas about what is going on there, but we do have larger plans for the bounty system outside of just, hey, here's a person and you can It's there for.
Yeah.
Sometimes you have to put down a
I don't
revolution
see
quickly.
a reason why we can't, but maybe there is.
Yeah. So yeah, that's a key part of
The bounty.
the bounty system. But I think also with the noose, right?
Mhm.
Same deal. If you don't want to build a guild team.
Exactly.
So
And the idea is that like you kind of set your bounties at free ports, and then you bring back the head of
Yeah,
whoever
exactly.
used the head back to the free ports to claim your reward. And we want to show players like, hey, like when you're sailing out the world, maybe you get a notification, like you see something on your UI to indicate like there is a person over there.
Uh-huh.
There's a large bounty on their head.
Yes.
And it incentivizes you to go kill them. Obviously, there are like some things that we got to look into because people are like, well, I'm just gonna set a bounty on myself, and then or maybe I have a bounty on me, and Cade is my friend, so I'm gonna kill you so
Uh-huh.
we can claim that bounty, and we're working on ways to make that so like that is not a thing that happens. Like
Yep.
we're gonna like if you have a bounty on you and you get killed, like we want it to feel punishing that like you don't feel the need to exploit it. And these are kind of things we're brainstorming, and when the system launches in February, like we'll tackle some of this, and this will just be phase 1 of bounties. Like we want to do a phase 2 where we're maybe putting bounties on like maybe bounties on creatures or bounties on bounties on ships. So. Just our production team are in here, and they're just like adjusting me, like, Chad, what are you doing? Kind of thing.
Chad.
I think I was messing with the sound a bit.
I mean, just talking about skins, also you'll see on here we've got a skin that will go in some form. You guys are probably used to fighting against the Army of the Damned, but we figure why not make it an armor skin. And so we'll have an Army of the Damned armor skin. Not sure how you'll unlock it yet, but it's pretty cool and can be combined with other armors, of course. He removed, like, maybe give him his metal pants with the top.
I think just kind of speaking on like the appearance of characters, that's something very important to us in Atlas. Like when you equip a weapon, or tools even, they show up on your body, and we want players to have these unique looks about them. We want them like, hey, if you want to look like this particular thing from like particular kind of person who's from the polars, maybe always dressed in fur, and then maybe there's a group of pirates who want to be dressed like the Army of the Damned, etc., etc. Like these things are pretty important to us, so we're gonna make sure there's a lot of options available for players.
One thing that we really spent a lot of time on for Atlas is the character system for customization. You know, we didn't have a lot of time at the beginning of early access to customize how the sliders can be adjusted, so you can create some pretty weird characters right now, but that's just more of a UI thing that we need to adjust. Our characters have, as you probably know, the ability to go from very thin to very fat characters and all sizes and shapes, and that applies to all of the outfits and armor too. And then we spent a lot of time to create a system where any piece of armor can be mixed and matched pretty seamlessly with any other piece of armor. So you can see here, like, he's wearing the plate pants, and he's still got the Army of the Damned boots and the Army of the Damned top on. Do you have the concept for some of the other skins that are going to go in the next update? So we're creating a lot of cool looks for characters. These two on the left are the Hydra armor set. So that's a skin for the plate armor on the left, and then a skin for the fur armor second from left. And then on the right, we've got sort of like a Cyclops-themed tribal set, where you've got a skin for the cloth armor on the right, and a skin for the hide armor on the second from the right. And we'll just keep cranking out more outfits. The art team needs tasks from time to time, and so we've got we have one person who's dedicated to outfits specifically, and other people to help out. So we want to keep creating new looks that are not just geometry, but you're able to fully colorize these, mix and match. All types of styles, and we'll come up with some more stuff as well throughout early access. And we already have the system in game to unlock things based on gold at free ports and eventually player shops, but also we want to give these sort of items as rewards for quests and stuff that are in the game now or that we'll be adding, as well as treasure chests and things like that, getting some of these items. Skins don't have any sort of innate gameplay advantage necessarily. They're just skins for the different outfit tiers we have gameplay-wise, but I think it'll help create a lot of variety for everybody in the game.
It's actually a disadvantage. See some of the skins, some kill them.
Like, kill it and take it.
It's like any other game. When someone buys like skins, you just want to
Hate them.
You got that peg leg?
Yeah, so we have the peg leg, we have the hook we're working on, and then
Yeah, let's show them the peg leg. Peg leg's coming out soon too, as well as hook hand. I think you got to remove the remove
gotta
the skin.
skin
Cool.
Yeah, what do you do?
Yeah. You'll actually be able to equip a left and a right peg leg and a left and a right hook hand.
So you
So
can
if you want to
double
have
peg it.
if you want to have 2 peg legs and 2 hook hands, have at it. Why not? You know.
Now you just got to make you more stumbly when you have them.
Yeah, it'd be nice to have animation skins at some point. That's a huge
trip
can of
over.
worms.
Yeah.
though. I think we'll stick to emotes for a while. We'll have a lot of cool emotes you can do and stuff like that. It's really easy to make new meshes and geometry relative to creating whole new animation sets that have to work with all sorts of gameplay. Do you have any other outfit skins, or is that what we have right now? Okay, cool.
I think you touched on this before. We can probably talk about it. This isn't something we can visually display right now on stream because I don't think it's ready to be done yet. But player shops and free ports. So we want players to be able to set up their own automated shops in each free port, and they can like list items they have to sell for gold, and they can choose.
Yeah,
how
player
much they wanna
shops are
sell
definitely
stuff.
coming soon. Like
Exactly.
we're really excited about that. You know, I mean, eventually it'd be great if whatever you find in a free port, a company could set up for people to do long term. You know, so we want to keep giving people the ability to set up their own, you know, commerce areas and towns and stuff. That, like we said, you want people to come to your neutral village area or claim area for some reason, right? Maybe this is part of that. You know, you want people to come to your shop, you want people to come to trade, bring you stuff, and you have a bunch of things that you want to sell or whatever with the economy. So there's a lot of cool ideas, you know, out there for how this stuff might work, but you know, you'll see stuff go in the game, and we'll get feedback from you guys and see how we need to.
Yeah, the initial phase
modify
would be the player shops and the free ports, and we'll
I
kind
know
of
I
go from
saw
there.
it in the questions list, I believe, but we are also going to be doing at some point trade UIs, like ways for players to directly trade with one another and stuff like that. Those are
At
things
some
that we're
point.
looking forward. No saying when they're going to be done,
But,
but
like,
they're definitely
there-
things that.
There are so many things we want to
Yeah.
do, and there's only so many hours in a day. Like it will come, it will get done. Like the market is very important to us. We want players to be able to drive their economy, and then we have our own ideas of things we want to do too. So in addition to like what you guys have sent in,
While we're on the ship here, maybe we should show some of the cool new bowsprit cosmetics for the ships.
Yes.
Which I saw someone's comment asking about that.
Yeah, so we're gonna have a lot of cool new customizations for your ships. This one's a really sweet octopus one, and these fit on any ship. Good. They can fit on top of each
feature
other.
or bug?
Bug for sure.
I mean,
Just spawn a new ship and put it on there.
Go for a swim.
Yeah. So we had the octopus one, and then this is like a Pegasus. I think, right? Okay.
Shameful display.
Hey, to be fair, he only got like 10 minutes notice that he was doing
It's
this.
true, he had no notice.
I mean, this is some Zane quality.
It was like, Zane, you're not eating lunch today. Just put that food down. Get in this room right
Whacked
now.
his vape out of his hand. He's like in here.
So that's the Pegasus one. I think we got 5 of these right now, right? A couple different ones too. Let's see. How fast can you do it, Zane?
He's practicing type racer. I don't know what it was. Just like.
Which one is this? Is this the Zeus looking one? Okay.
Cheater.
So this is pretty important to us, players being able to customize their boats. Like that's how we have quite. We allow you to do quite a lot when it comes to building, and then Atlas's its building was completely overhauled when we decided to launch it, and we're going to keep introducing things like this so players can kind of have their unique looking fleets and ships, and it's important to us that the world feels like everyone you meet is the potential to be someone different. You're not always looking at the same kind of body, the same kind of person. You're not looking like I think there are usually some certain designs in games that are like, this is the optimal build, but we kind of want players to have the freedom to
We already know about
try
that
different
one.
things.
Try a new one. There's a. Do we have skeleton and the dragon too?
It's Jesse's just naming it out loud. He's like, yeah, we're doing this one. We do this
So
too.
all of these things are coming in the February update. Like the bounty system will be there, the player shops and free ports, all these cosmetics, like the armor stuff we showed you, the ship ones, and there's even more stuff to come as well. We should have some pretty cool concepts. I'm hoping that we can show off. There's something we teased at in one of our social media posts about like looking under the waves and seeing the glint.
Yes.
So like, is that something we have concepts for that we can show right now? It's
Yeah,
the third on the
seeing
list.
if he's done. Is that all the outfits?
All right, do one final flyby, and then we can kind of show some of this other stuff off.
Gotta do it for people's YouTube channels.
I know there's also a dragon one that's pretty cool that we got coming, and a skeleton one that's pretty cool.
They're really cool. Americans did an absolutely fantastic
I'm also
job.
coming of like the mindset that like I didn't see any of these during the actual production, so it's like now
I
we're
think my
talking
favorite is the
about
octopus one.
mine's a unicorn. Pegasus.
Now, with the dev kit being available, people can make their own versions and
Yeah.
have some pretty cool looking stuff.
The Pegasus.
No, it's impossible.
It's an octopus Pegasus. Just a spoiler for like
An octopegasus.
An octopus.
Does that mean it has 8 legs or 8 horns or 8 wings?
All
Octopegasus.
of them. All it's got 8 of
All
everything.
horns. all legs.
Somebody please send me a drawing of a Pegasus with 8 wings, 8 horns, and 8 legs.
Octosis Pegasus.
I think that that's
I mean,
24
Slipnear's pretty close to that. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's some Norse for you.
I like this one. It's mean. That's cool.
My vision is too bad to really see from here. I'm just like
All blurry. He's like, yeah, that looks great, man.
The blurktopus.
Yeah, we do have a concept of what Jat was talking about. It's not final yet. We're still messing around with it. You want to bring that underwater edition up?
we'll see what
There's no
comes
such
up.
thing as next.
I don't think there's a next in Windows Photo Viewer.
Thanks, Windows.
Whoa.
Photo Viewer. Yeah, we're talking about some advanced
all the
concepts
spoilers.
here.
No, not that one. We'll talk
All
about
right.
that.
Wait. Let's talk about this. Let's talk about this one then.
Okay, fine.
Go for it.
You
we're
ruined it, Zane.
Well, in the next update, February update, we're going to have a new main quest, which is going to be this kind of PvE cave. And it's like a legit cave full of all sorts of stuff and a lot of monsters, enemies to fight. You can only enter it if you've got all the power stones, so similar to fighting the boss. You'll need to get the power stones in order to do some of these like sort of more end game quests. But this is going to take you under the polar regions to the ruins of a sunken golden age city, and you're going to get through this cave, and if you make it all the way through, get that special ability for your character, skill tree that can only be gotten by achieving this quest line. So that should be pretty fun. It's, you know, we don't really have any huge underground caves in Atlas right now. We've got some smaller caves that are a little bit shorter, but nothing that's specific, kind of like a dungeon for you to go in and try to prepare for with the right equipment and right number of people, and you know, maybe you'll get lost in there, who knows. But it'll be at various spots in the map, so it can't be like blocked off by any one group or anything like that, and you'll have various ways to access it. But we're working on that. That'll be in the February update too, and we'll add in that sort of special skill tree thing at the end. In the future, we might add more of those type of special skills that you can get through quest lines and stuff like that.
And if you didn't catch the special, I don't know if you were being
I did.
intentionally vague, but if you didn't catch what it is, it allows a new perfect water breathing feat, so it allows players to remain underwater for a period of time without consuming any oxygen, which for a game like ours is pretty useful. And then there's more things like that we do want to explore. And like I think the idea is that like Atlas is this kind of ever-growing thing where like we plan to add more caves, we plan to add more underground trenches, like we want to like grow the map, like the biomes are still getting worked on, like there's a lot of different things we want to do, and this kind of dungeon and these underground trenches and this cave, like this is like I guess phase 1 post early access launch, like okay, this is the first bit of new kind of level design we wanted to introduce, and then I know our LDs are working on even more stuff, and like it's probably going to be something that we could talk about each update. Really.
Yep.
Do you want to show the next piece of concept?
Do you think?
I don't know. Do you think?
Yeah.
It was a question.
Is everything?
Yeah, that was a question. Like,
I
just
just.
a fair cap. Just is getting.
I mean, it's all been spoiled now, so it's just whichever. Just go in order, really.
This is still early. We're working on it,
It's
but
the grabby clock.
Official name.
So we're creating a submarine for you guys, and it's Atlas's. As you may know, Atlas is a world that is more primitive than it used to be. So there's going to be some items that are based on the technology of the Golden Age, where magic was used for essentially a fuel source to power fantastical machines and stuff like that. And along with that, we want to introduce some of those mechanics over time. You already have one in the shape of your compass that can take photos, which I think we still have some work to do to make sure that fully functions properly. That's kind of the first piece of that in the game. But submarine we'll be adding soon will allow you to explore the depths, the new trench area that we're going to add to the game underwater. That new breathing ability will also come in handy if you want to leave your sub underwater. And the trench area is going to be a whole new biome that's under the sea. So if you think of how Atlas has all these islands and sea play area, think of it as more of a 3D world, because under the ocean right now, you already have shipwrecks and things. The sub will make salvaging shipwrecks much more efficient. It'll make finding those things and getting to them much more efficient for you. But we're adding in those underwater biomes with the trench as the first area to kind of give you that sort of underwater place to explore. That's not just plants and little things down there. There might be caves down there. There might be ruins and stuff for you to find. You'll want to spend some time down there, and it's definitely more mid to end game in order to get there. But just suffice it to say, the lands above the ocean are not the only place with interesting things for you to visit. So this may change a little bit, this concept, as we go, but the idea is it's a sub that fits on the dinghy dock in terms of size, and it doesn't really have any offensive capability per se, other than it's got these claws that can help you harvest, and you can walk around inside of it. Maybe about 4 people can fit in it and ride around. Maybe 6. We'll see how many it'll hold gameplay wise, but that'll be in the February update as well.
Yeah, no, it's definitely not a weaponized vehicle. It's for exploration, not for
Underwater
shooting torpedoes
exploration.
at people.
Yeah.
I'm also kind of excited getting this in there sooner, because it allows modders to kind of have their way with it too, and see how we've implemented this, and they want to make their own versions, and maybe they do want to make that super torpedo submarine sonar that can communicate with whales and all that jazz, and then this gives them the basis for doing that.
Yeah, and like the exciting thing about like introducing sub, at least to me, is that it definitely starts to introduce more of the fantastical elements in terms of like how we introduce pirate gameplay and like exploration in Atlas, especially because like there are lore elements and just clue-ins on the fact that there is something else out there. So doing something like the sub does kind of like kind of put us more in that space, especially since we do have other things like hydras and cyclopses, and like there are things out there that expand more than just what was like a typical fantasy pirate game.
And something I think worth touching on, just like narratively and design-wise, is that a lot of this is steampunk. It's not like, this is not tech. It's not walking into the high technology. It's not lasers and fucking, sorry, my language.
Pirates.
I'm a pirate. I'm allowed to swear. But yeah, it's not walking into the lasers and pew-pew and jet fighters and stuff like that. We're trying to be very, very cognizant of the fact that the theming, and that the world itself is still very piracy, Age of Pirates based. And so the kinds of things that we introduce to the world and how they allow you to interact with the world are going to be very respectful towards that. And so don't expect to see like, yeah, no, you can just put a big gun on the top of your dinosaur
Automatic
lasers at
turrets.
everybody. And, like we're trying to be very, very respectful.
Just to elaborate on that, you can think of like the state of the world in Atlas as kind of like Game of Thrones,
Yes.
where it's a little more primitive, but there's magic in the world.
Yes.
People just don't really know how to use it that well. There's magical creatures. There's magic that's left over in items and ruins from a previous time where magic was infused everywhere in the world, and humanity wielded it as easily as we wield electricity and things like that today. And it had more of a ubiquitous utilitarian
Yes.
use in the Golden Age, and all of that knowledge is lost in Atlas's world. And as players, we're all going to discover it together. But as Cade says, there's never going to be laser beams and things of that nature.
Yeah.
This is a fantasy game. It's not a sci-fi game. And to the extent we add more advanced mechanical things, it will be similar to like what you might see in a steampunk genre. But
Yes.
instead of being run by steam, you'll see that stuff sort of run by magical powers or resources and stuff like that, similar to how it was in Atlas's Golden Age.
Yep.
And some other thing we want to touch on. John mentioned like Hydras and Cyclops earlier. So in this update, we are planning for tame tokens to be available for more mythical creatures. That means allowing players to have limited time tames of the Fire Elemental, the Rock Elemental, the Cyclops, the Gorgon, and this also means that the Rock Elemental and Cyclops will be rideable. So by like timed tames, that means you don't keep them permanently, and there's more strategy involved in using them and bringing these to your naval battles or your land battles. And then additionally, we're also gonna have some new creatures come into the game, and this one is a giant crab. It can carry
Giant enemy crab.
What'd you say?
a giant what?
Giant enemy crab.
An enemy crab.
Yeah. You can attack its weak point for massive damage.
What are you talking about?
It's an old and bad meme, and I'm sad nobody on the couch got it.
Listen, I got it, but
No,
I had to
no
sit
one
here and
understood
just,
Are
like,
you
that.
telling me
smile.
you're over 9,000 right now, Ted?
I was like, what?
Dude's playing 4D chess with his jokes. I'm like,
I still don't get it, but
He
anyway.
was a beamer, yeah.
It can carry quite a lot along with players, tames, and like wild creatures. You got the two giant claws there that people will make use of. And I think we're gonna find these in the trench, right?
Yes.
This is
Yeah.
They are deep sea trench dwellers.
And I know we have some additional plans for other creatures in it.
You have another.
Ah, yes.
Yeah.
This friend.
So, but this one is this one making it in February? It's we'll see kind of thing.
I don't know if we're planning February on this one. We'll
Yeah.
see, but
Yeah.
we're working on it.
Yeah, so maybe I'll show it to you.
Yeah. So this is kind of for the desert areas, and it's like can be hard to get water. So we want to have a creature that can help out with that, store water for you, and it's probably gonna have water come out of its horns or something, or its snout. We'll see what the animation team wants to do with that. But in addition to holding water, it can also spray water and stuff like that. So who knows? It might have some interesting abilities related to fire or something. Maybe it'll be useful for certain types of defense, in addition to just allowing you to get water from it. So we'll see. But yeah, we want to make sure the creatures are nice and fun and fantastical as well. Put a lot of normal-ish creatures at Atlas's launch because we needed them for various reasons. But you'll see as we go through adding more content, we definitely want to be a little more creative with our creatures, a little more towards a fantasy bent, and we don't want the coolest creatures to just be on the PvE islands. And that's also what Jad was talking about with the tame tokens. The dragon's temporarily tameable right now. We want to make sure you can tame the Cyclops and the Gorgon and all those cool creatures as well, so they're not just strictly enemies. There's another reason you might want to get close to them. So.
And kind of going off the dragon thing, we are making some end game balance changes with this February update. Maybe come a bit sooner, but we're going to be reducing the difficulty of the wild dragon. We're going to be restricting his movements. I know, like in some cases where I've seen people try and fight the wild dragon, it's just like chase them down to their boats and set all their boats up. I was like, oh my god,
It's a dragon.
these guys had
Let's
no
just-
idea that what they were running into.
Let's just say we realized that's way too hard right
Yeah,
now.
we got to keep it tethered to like a location and see how it goes from there. We're also going to be reducing the difficulty of the Kraken, which is the final boss. It's still going to be a challenge, but it's going to be certainly more doable. To my knowledge, I don't know if there is a group that has defeated the Kraken. Yeah, I mean, if you have on an official server, I would love to hear about it, but to my knowledge, it hasn't been done yet. Though I do know there are a bunch of copies of a bunch of Power Stones. I think I had someone message me yesterday, like, I have 8 Power Stones, if they get Compass, like, they're going for the next one. And now when you defeat the Kraken in this update, it will give you a new feat, because we wanted to make it more rewarding. Like, we want players to go there and fight the Kraken, and we want you guys to experience the end game content we have, whether that's the new PvE cave we have, whether it's the Kraken, whether it's going to these PvE islands, the Golden Rune Ages. And when you defeat the Kraken in February, it will allow players it'll give them a feat which allows players to prevent wild creatures from being aggressive towards you for a period of time, and that's just another kind of bonus feat we're doing. And I think that kind of expands, like, we're still making changes to our skills and feat systems. Like, they still plan to grow, and we want to make improvements and introduce new things, and kind of like, it's quite nice because especially with the tarot stuff, it kind of allows us to, as you said, there's no like physicality, right? So if we can't do this for a logic way, let's see if we can make it work with magic, kind of thing. What else will we talk about? Let's see. So we mentioned new cosmetics, tame tokens. I think just general updates. Oh, so some of the QR changes we're doing, like players can now mount a sail directly and control the sail's open and closing mount and rotation settings in a more intuitive way. Like right now, you have to go up to a sail, hold down E, and then click on the kind of rotation you want. Like
I think you can still use that if you want, right?
Yeah.
But you can actually mount the sail by
and then
default
use,
and steer
use
it.
WASD or something like that to kind of control it. We also mentioned earlier that the AOD AI ships will come in multiple size variations with different stats and different difficult levels.
Can you bring in the small AOD ship next to the current one in the editor?
Oh, it's so dark.
It's fine. Do it at nighttime.
I mean, they do have the missive, so
I think there's a blueprint for it if you want to spawn both of them, but still kind of work in progress.
while Zane gets that ready, I'll talk on some other messages. So we're gonna make it so like any dead ships, like shipwrecks from your company, will appear with a unique icon on your minimap now, so you can find the wrecks. I know people that lost their boats and they're like, well, don't really know where we lost it, so we're gonna do that change. We're also gonna be making adjustments to the UI itself so that, like, you're not constantly flooded with contesting and claim notifications. So I know that's a big pet peeve of people right now. Where like their UI just gets completely covered with text.
Oh yeah,
that
we have
says-
some quality of
yeah,
life UI changes.
Exactly.
going
Like contesting claim in this user, no longer contesting claim, like, and it just floods your screen. So we're gonna be tackling that. We're also introducing a stealth mode to the game, which basically is gonna hide all the UI elements, which may give away your location. It's something that content creators have requested for a long time, and I actually remember like some hardcore players back in the early phases of Arc wanted something like that, where they could kind of just like hide their location and not really like. Even they themselves didn't want to know where they are. They wanted to live off the land that way. So that's coming in with that update. We're going to be updating the territory map, so we'll now display allies as teal-colored, so it's clearer. Like when you look at your map, like, hey, does this claim belong to an enemy? Does it belong to an ally, or is it ours? And then, as Jesse mentioned earlier, we're going to be making some changes to the character creation UI, so that like things are kind of more tied to height. Like, so you kind of have less of these goofy, ridiculous, monstrous.
Yeah, I
characters
mean, the
in
reason everything's so extreme in there right now is because we wanted you to be able to create a giant, like, huge character and also a very small character. But we didn't have any way at launch to kind of make those things together depend on each other.
Yeah.
So we had to kind of just put the full range in there for all the sliders so that we could support the full range. So with this update, we're adding a height slider, which globally changes the scale of your character from a very short character to a very tall character. And then the rest of the sliders are much more reduced in their extreme changes so that they can be based on, if you have a large character and you have huge arms, it looks like it does now.
Yeah.
But if you have a short character with huge arms, the arms are much smaller than the large character with huge arms. So it kind of depends on each other. I think Zane's got the. Oh no! It destroyed. It destroyed. This is still work in progress, but this is the small ship of the damned. Has less cannons. The flags are a little static up top right now. That'll be fixed by the time we go out with it. But it has less cannons, less health, half the size of the current one. But still will be good to do some good loot and stuff like that. And definitely not as dangerous as the larger ship of the damned. There's also the largest ship of the dam, which will probably go in as well at the same time, which is about double the size of the current one, and just has a crap ton of guns. So,
Is that something that's in now that we can see? Or
I don't think it's in. Maybe the proxy. Can you see if there's a proxy model for that one, Zane?
Largest ship of the damned.
Damnedest.
It might be called the damnedest ship.
Oh, I nailed it. Holy.
Just kidding.
Until we make the next one.
And then we have the most damnedest.
Damneder?
Search for large AOD. I don't think it's an actual game item right now. It's just mesh.
It's probably just the static mesh.
Yeah. See it? Just drop it in there. It's probably like untextured and everything.
Damn, Jesse's showing on tech. This is
You'd probably have to
Fine.
stop.
the
to
art director
fix
inside
that
of him
exam.
is probably
This
like,
is
oh
real
my god,
Atlas.
how am I really showing this?
Zoom out. Oh, it's sideways.
It's
I
sideways.
guess?
Can you rotate it?
Yeah.
There you go.
I think I preferred it the other way.
Yeah. This thing's double the size of the current one. You can see it's got multiple gun decks, and this one doesn't have any of its cloth flag stuff on it right now, so it looks a little naked, but it's pretty big. If you drag in the other two next to it, there should be meshes for those.
So this is something you guys can experience in February in the large bounty update. So we'll have this and everything we've kind of spoken about in this stream so far, and then we'll have notes go up in the captain's log on Monday, like what you can look forward to, and there are going to be some additional balance changes as well with that update.
Yeah, and there's a lot of information that's coming in here, so just be sure, like, we will be keeping track of, like Reddit or Captain's Log, or just.
Also, just one note about adding more Ship of the Dam. The reason we're doing it is because we want it to be something that players of all levels can engage in. And right now there's only one type, which is the pretty hard medium one.
Yeah.
So by adding in the earlier, smaller one, that really opens that sort of those combat engagements up to smaller ships and crews that maybe don't have as much experience or as much time on the seas and stuff like that. So there you can see like the three of them next to each other. The sizes might change a little as we go towards releasing them. Maybe the smaller one might get a little smaller, who knows. But that'll give definitely 3 difficulty tiers of these ships now that players of different skill levels can still get that sort of battling the NPC AI on the seas going. So.
Cool. I think that pretty much covers what we've got going for the next update. I mean, there's going to be various miscellaneous changes like balance stuff, and we're still going to be doing performance optimizations. Like we have something in with our QA team right now where we've kind of incredibly optimized the player movement system, and that's like probably a 30% gain. So that may come in sooner than February, because we don't really like sitting on optimization stuff. Like as soon as it's ready, we want to get it out there so you guys can feel the difference
It just
immediately.
requires a lot of testing because it's like a core element of the game. It's just
If we break movement, exactly.
You're going to see some weird side effects. We want to get as many edge cases as we can out of the way
That looks better.
before we put that out.
I think the other one was is actually scaled about that size maybe in its blueprint.
Is that the accurate scale?
I think that's a little closer to how it's supposed to be right there.
It's a banana.
A banana for scale.
I know that
I
reference.
got that one. Good. You
see
did
that
good.
One worked?
Yeah.
We do have human for scale.
Or giant squid.
What?
Giant squid.
Yeah.
Actual 2016.
What else? Do we have anything else cool to talk about?
I mean, there's plenty of things to talk about, but this is what we have coming up in
Yes.
February. And I think that pretty much covers the notes.
Yes.
Do we want to just real quick, in case people missed it, just go over the dev kit stuff real quick?
Oh yes, the dev kit is
Can we
available.
bring up Zane's? Can you go to the
Play Atlas.
forum post on Play Atlas real quick?
PlayAtlas.com, and then you'll see a post. So the dev kit was released this morning around like 5 a.m. PST or something like that. We have a post up on our community hub which covers a lot of technical information with like setting up mods, like map extensions, new maps. It's quite robust. Some things I do want to clear up is like the ARC content is in the dev kit, and that's there so you guys can kind of see like how the new systems work in Atlas and use it as a basis for building your new content. Additionally, like this is a question we always get, like you can use ARC content in Atlas mods.
Yes.
The only thing that we will be striking off the Steam Workshop page is maps. So like if you bring over the island, if you bring over the Ragnarok, if you bring over Ragnarok, etc., we'll be removing those from the workshop. So we don't want you to bring over like our ARC maps. I mean, if you have your own ARC map, you're welcome to port that over if you wish. And so if you head to playatlas.com, in our most recent announcement, there is a link to the dev kit. It's big. I think it's like 160 gigabytes. We're going to have it up on the Epic launcher soon, and there'll also be Epic like subforums created for it. But for now, feel free to use the Atlas forums. We have a navigator's tool section, which allows you to like an area for general discussion, showcases, tutorials, and then also there's still the Steam Workshop. And there is a bunch of technical information there from Jeremy with instructions on how to make mods and like how you're setting up your servers and command lines. And he's also made like 6 or 7 example mods in there, and we've like linked to them, and we've shown people how they can set it up themselves. And then obviously we did our own versions of certain things. So like we have the tank, the steampunk airship. We have the submarines coming in February, so that's another example that you guys will be able to look at. So yeah, just head out there. And over time, we'll be updating the documentation, and we'll be sharing more information. Zenro is going to get involved in this stuff, so some of you may know him from the ARC side because he manages the mods there, and he's going to be doing it for us here too.
A thing that I would like to very teasingly touch on real quick and just say that there will be more information about it coming up relatively soon. Yes, I see you chat age.
And it's not pre-recorded.
And it,
Oh, I have a.
Just get that out the way. It's not actually pre-recorded.
no, it's not. But we do have an aging system that is going to be coming in. But I believe we are planning to talk a little bit more about that, not today, but you can expect to hear about it relatively soon.
It might be in the next.
Yeah,
Atlas
there's just a
dev
lot
kit.
to talk about, and there's a lot of stuff being finalized, and there is. I can't do it justice here because a lot of people are touching the system. I specifically, like, it's not a system that I have had a lot of hands on. There are other designers who have been working on that system much more closely than I have, and so I could not do it justice in terms of explaining all of the interesting things that are going on. So there will be a more in-depth, like, hey, here's what we're doing with the aging system that will be coming out a bit later.
Yeah.
And like some of these will obviously break down much more. Like there's a lot of information, and we went over our own time on just what we wanted to talk about, right? So like there are certain parts about like the bounty system where we actually just briefly went through it, but like we didn't really touch on all the systems behind it and just like the advantages of participating and whatnot. So like you should expect moving forward, right? Like we'll have a captain's log, we'll break it down, we'll just talk about certain other things, and then we'll have other platforms in which case people can ask additional questions.
Yeah.
So like I apologize about not answering, the spam of the word age over and over and over. Okay, that's all. It's just there are better ways for us to address certain questions like that.
Jesse's bringing all the tea,
But-
man. I did not
but-
expect this.
Zane does have
Well,
something on the screen.
This is just early work in progress. Just like when we created the creature system for for aging, like this is not the
makes me
final
so
one.
uncomfortable.
Wait, Twitch, I'm sorry. It's legal.
But
Legal ban.
look, it's a Barbie
I know.
style,
I
okay?
know.
But just like when we made the creature system for babies, for Atlas, we extended that system to be able to be used for humans as well. So we're working on what the life cycle of a human character looks like from a toddler to a teenager, and then finally to an adult.
Jesse's skinning
And
Orion. His
all of the
actual baby.
all of the customization from your character and stuff like that, it's possible to show it from a baby through an adult. So it'll be interesting to see once we get a little more in detail on how this system's going to work, some genetic combinations of characters and stuff like that. But, there's a lot of gameplay stuff to consider as well. So like we said, we'll discuss that later. But just from the content side, it's cool to, work on it and know that we can create a full kind of progression on your character. And how it works will be sort of something that we'll also get a lot of balance and tuning, I'm sure. But we definitely want to make it something that we want you to want to do. It's not like a chore. That's not the purpose. We want to give you perks and stuff for participating in it. But if not, we'll have other ways to deal with aging as well. Fountains of youth, as we've mentioned before, and some other maybe in-game ways to deal with aging if you're not really into that sort of life cycle. Let's call it.
So just let that baby be your answer to aging. Now,
it's a thing. It's happening.
thing.
There's just a lot of things we got to work out with it, and when we're ready to talk about it, we'll let you guys know. I mean, some of the things we touched on in the February update, maybe we only spoke about it for a couple of minutes, but that does not mean it's a small system to create. Maybe it will take us weeks and or potentially longer to create some of the things we're doing. So the bounty system in particular, I know we kind of touched on that lightly just to give you a general idea of its purpose, but creating something like that is certainly going to take a lot more time, and the things we have to consider because we don't want it to be exploited and stuff like that. And again, it will just be phase one. We'll have additional bounty stuff coming on the way.
And if you missed the beginning of the stream, we've got 3 parallel tracks: technical features, performance improvement, server and client, bug fixes are 1. Balance and gameplay changes are another track, iterating on the stuff that's in there, making all of that better. And the 3rd track is features and new content, which we've been showing you here, some sneak peeks into the next content update. All that stuff's happening in parallel. We've got different people dedicated to each one of those initiatives, and we'll just continue to keep you updated on all of those things as we go forward here.
Yeah, make sure you're following us on our social media pages, Sell the Atlas is our Twitter. It's probably the primary thing we use. Also, we're pretty big on Discord too, which would be discord.gg/playatlas, and then our community hub, which is selltheatlas.com. Sorry, playatlas.com.
Oh, yeah. Did you want to mention maybe with the feature requests and bug stuff, maybe some things you're thinking about?
So there is a lot of kind of feedback we're getting about how we kind of handle our bug reports, and people want to know what is actively being worked on, what are we as a team aware of. So we're going to be using the kind of ticketing system we've created for GM stuff. We're going to create a bug version of that, and it's the same idea. You can report bugs in there, and these are things that players can additionally comment on. You can upvote, and we'll be able to keep track of hey, what are the priority community, what are the issues that the community feel are most important, and that's something we're working on right now. But initially, we're going to be turning on the upvote system on the bug forum on playatlas.com after this stream. So if there are issues that you're running and you're hey, this is important to us, we want to see this fixed, you can go upvote bugs currently, and then we'll okay, this is something that's got 200 upvotes in the span of a week, maybe this is something we got to deal with sooner than later. And we do want to present that information in a way that's more consumable and digestible for you guys, so you're okay, the Atlas team are aware of this, and this, and they said they're going to be working on this, and it allows you to, it's easier for us to know what you guys want us to do, and then it also shows you what we're working on too.
Yep.
Cool. So I think that pretty much covers everything. Thank you guys for tuning in. This was our first Atlas dev stream. The VOD will be available to watch after the stream, and we're also going to be kind of going through everything that we spoke about today in our next captain's log, including revealing all the patch notes. I'll probably just put them up today on our patch notes thread on playatlas.com and on Steam, so you guys can see what's coming up. And then, but the captain's log will have the full digest. We'll kind of fully go through everything, including the pictures and the concept that we've seen, and the VOD is available to watch too. This is something we want to do regularly. Maybe it's a monthly thing. Maybe it ends up being more frequent. We'll have to see. But for now, keep sending us in your feedback. Keep posting on social media, post on the Atlas forums, things you want to see. Let us know what you enjoy, what you dislike, what you want to see more of. Share your ideas with us, because we do read it, and we will make changes, and we're open to doing all of these things. We just you know, we kind of gotta see like how we want to prioritize accordingly. Like we mentioned, we have these 3 areas we want to focus on, and we'll kind of go from there.
Yeah, and again, like we see the questions on Twitch, but there's also a lot of spam. So you know, we'll just have to collectively understand like what you guys are mostly curious about, and we'll just take that and vet it properly, and just give you guys a proper channel in which we can actually answer to full rather than just giving you an autocorrect answer. Which then just goes back to not trying to be so jerk reaction.
Yeah, so like if you have questions or like you want to give feedback of the stuff that you've seen so far, or if there's something you feel like we haven't addressed and you'd like us to talk more about it, then, you know, like let us know on social media, on Reddit, like on the forums. We'll see that stuff, and then we'll do our best to address them in the upcoming captain's logs or in our blog posts.
Great.
Cool.
Thanks, everyone.
Au
Ahoy.
revoir.
Do you say that at the beginning or the end?
Wait, what?
Ahoy.
Ahoy?